Let's go, Mel. Let's talk about panicking. Okay, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast, where we're talking around critical mindsets that'll help you in a tough situation. Everything from a child has an injury that is looking pretty grotesque and they need you to solve it, to you're in a tough situation and how to get yourself out. Mel, read us in.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
This is going to be one of those classic easier said than done episodes, so I want to put that caveat at the beginning. However, it is worth it to learn this skill. It is worth it to adopt these mindsets. And with practice, you'll be able to do it with no problem. It'll start to become more natural. We're going to do some Q&A episodes soon, so please ask your questions. You can email us at strongfamilyco@gmail.com or message us through the website. You may put your message as a YouTube comment as well. And so we'll be checking those as the YouTube following has been growing, as the podcast has been growing, as we're getting, I don't know where we're at now, 4,000 downloads in the first couple weeks of doing the podcast. And so I want to thank you for doing an amazing job of sharing the show. A lot of it has been organic right now. Mel is going to start guesting on some episodes, which will be exciting. Same here. So we're going to start getting the word out, and it takes a lot of legwork for us to do that. And the trade-off is that we won't be able to shoot as many episodes here as we have been, because our goal was 2 per week, and we've shipped 7 the first week, and then been doing 3 every week after that. So we've been over-delivering on what we promised, the 2 episodes per week. 2's the minimum standard for us, so we will keep meeting that for you. And the more that you share this with your friends and family, whether it's on social media or emailing them directly, the more time we can invest in doing extra episodes for you, including that Q&A episode we just mentioned. So if you have a question or situation you want us to chat on, we'd love to hear it. We have reference of our own experiences, our family life, and by asking questions, it gives us some deeper things to think about. We can walk and talk on it. It'll help us stretch our skills as well. So we'd love to hear it. Speaking of skills, this is one that is learned. It is a skill. It is not innate to be calm under pressure. Mel, why is that important?
It's important because we want to be able to teach our kids how to react in situations, in difficult situations. And again, we're a family project here, so we really focus on how we're impacting our kids and what they're learning. And to start with, like little babies, little kids, they learn to react based on how their parents react. So if something happens to them, if they run in and they got a cut on their finger and they're bleeding a little bit, they might be pretty calm about it. But as soon as they see you go, oh my gosh, what happened? They then will realize that they should be upset. Like I've seen this happen. I've seen one of my kids come to me and they have a cut and they're looking at me like expectantly, like, should I be upset? Should I not? And then all of a sudden you see those tears start to slowly form. But if I can, and this has been a skill that I've worked on for years now and I'm still not great at it.
Really?
If I can calm myself down and kind of say, oh, it's all right. Let mommy just take a look at it, even though I might be freaking out inside, they won't cry. Or their reaction will dissipate because they see that I am not panicking. So this starts like from when they're super little. And just as the parent, recognizing that my reaction teaches them what their reaction should be.
And I do appreciate you sharing that. And I know we joke about it, so I want to say that in the podcast. So I keep making noises because it's part of I don't want to have any inside jokes, but I do. But we're talking about that. And I'll give you an example. The one time you got it perfectly right, which was shocking. So I fell out of a tree, shattering my right leg. I believe Henry was with us. He might have been 3 maybe at the time.
They both were there.
They both might have been there. So I'm up doing some shenanigans in a tree. Branch breaks, fall 15 feet, land right on my feet like a cat. But my right leg is on a root, rolls the ankles and shatters the lower leg. Like crooked. Like it's not good. Now, somehow I don't panic. I say, hey, get mom. Don't yell, don't swear. Like it just a feeling of calm came over me. Like this is really bad. I need to direct traffic right now instead of just freak out and become a further liability in the situation. So that's part of the mindset. And so they go get mom. Henry very sweetly goes to one of our ponds and starts like breaking up ice and like walking over some ice so I can put it on it. And again, he's like 3, but he's thinking about how to make it right instead of us all panicking. And so this is the time that Mel gets it right. She comes sauntering out of the house, across the pond. She sees me laying there, boots like crooked, like it's not good. She says, "Hey, you gonna get up?" Like the one time completely calm. I'm like, "Hey, can you call an ambulance?" She looks at me confused.
Just expected you to get up.
Just like, why aren't you? I broke my leg. Like I felt it. And she was perfectly calm, thank goodness. But she just had the like, "Hey, why don't you just gonna lay there?"
Well, because you were so calm, I then was able to stay calm and not freak out. So it's exactly what we're talking about. Because, I mean, also being who you are, I just expect you to be able to bounce back from anything. So that was part of it. But the fact that you were so calm, I thought, oh, this isn't too bad. Just get up and walk away from it. And the kids didn't panic at all. I think we had a friend there too. Just called the ambulance, called my mother-in-law and my mom to see who could come over and watch the kids so I could take Joe to the hospital. But it all started, I think it was calm. I appreciate the credit, but I think I was calm because you were calm.
And that goes back to what you were saying earlier with the kids. Like if they come in, the kids are very smart. They're reading faces to figure out social situations. And if your face is panic mode, you're going to set up the situation to be much worse. And this could be, we're talking injuries now, but it could be an example of them breaking something. Like, am I going to get yelled at? Like, you still staying calm in those situations are critical. This isn't just injury prevention. I'll give one more example, though, on that level. We had a great CPR teacher come over to a company that I have called Synergy Athletics, and the gentleman's name was Andy Kreis. He was a swim coach, a super dedicated guy. He teaches the kids tons, and he does lifeguard training and everything. I had him come over to speak to our staff because he was so good at it. And one of the first things he talks about is you have to stay calm under pressure. Like you can't look and see someone with an injury, and then if you panic, then they start going into shock. And yes, if we're talking injuries again, that's true for just about everything. If they see panic on your face, that reaction for them will also become panic. Now, if they're the ones injured, it becomes very detrimental in that situation. They can go into shock and become genuinely, it can exacerbate the medical condition significantly. And so we did all the training there. I've done outdoor first aid, backwoods first aid, and that's the first step is you have to stay calm in these situations. It is a learned skill. And those are extreme situations, but you also have to stay calm when a child spills a cup of milk on the table. You don't fly off the handle, because what are you teaching them to do? Fly off the handle when things go wrong.
This actually, the spilled milk thing reminds me of whenever kids have the stomach bug, I'm always like afraid that they're going to throw up somewhere that I can't clean. And I think that I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a time when one of the kids threw up. I think it was fairly recent. And I walked in and I didn't even know what to do. Now,
just so much throw up in such a weird spot.
You just don't even know where to start. But I think years ago, I would have just gotten angry because then I realized I have to do this cleaning. This is annoying. But now I just kind of walk in, and I did stand there for a minute because I just didn't know what to do. And I think one of the kids was like, "Can I get some towels?" I'm like, okay, let's slow this down. I got to realize I'm having an emotional reaction and just take a deep breath and then start problem solving. So if you fly off the handle, the problem solving doesn't happen. We're going to say a little bit more about that in a minute, but I was able to realize my reaction, my internal reaction, start to problem solve, get it cleaned up. And of course, now there's a kid who's sick, so they do need to have some love and care for them and not make them feel bad for having thrown up. But again, it's recognizing, being able to look at yourself from an outside perspective and say, okay, what's my tendency? How do I tend to react? And can I take a moment and try to make a better choice so that the situation can go a more positive way?
Good tactic for everyone here with those type of situations, not necessarily the injury ones, but the spilled milk, the throw up, all these things that happen is role reversal. What would I want done for me? And the first is like if someone's sick and they're throwing up, and now they also feel bad on top of it. That's not helping the situation yet. You probably want to be reassured, situation handled, and then progress made to solving it. And that's how you should handle a situation for someone else, if that's how you want to be treated.
Well, I have another example, since we really like examples. So So both of my older kids have braces now. And I was sitting at my desk, and that's one level up. And all of a sudden, I think I hear someone yelling for me. And I was like, this sounds a little bit different. So I go to the front door and, well, let me back up just a second. Because I heard someone yelling for me, I started to already panic inside. Because the person wasn't directly in front of me, I had a moment to kind of collect myself and not overreact. So I didn't know what was coming through the door. So one of my kids comes through the door and bleeding pretty decently from his mouth. I'm not sure if his teeth are messed up. Did he lose a tooth? These thoughts are all going through my head. But I was really trying to hold it together and just say, it's all right, let's just get you a towel and clean it up and then we'll figure it out. Now, again, inside, I'm kind of freaking out. On the outside, I'm staying calm, and that is helping me. But I wrote down here, like, inward and outward reactions are important. And we were able to clean it up and checked his teeth. They were okay. The braces were kind of messed up. There was a wire kind of pulled and twisted. Okay, well, we'll just call the orthodontist and we'll go fix it. But again, if I didn't have the mindset of I need to stay calm, I need to know that I can problem solve this because I don't want him to panic. And oftentimes the panic is just overblown anyway. We were able to get through that. I think we got to the orthodontist that afternoon and just fixed it real quick. So that's another kind of example of you never know what might come through the door. And if you have the mindset of staying calm, that's really your goal, it really will help the whole process be smoother and you can solve the problem much quicker.
I think there's an important just concept to share as well, because we're sharing these tactics and strategies with you to improve your lives and your family's lives and improve their outcomes, and for you to teach to your family and role model. There's it's oversimplification to say like there's good parents and bad parents. There's unskilled parents and skilled parents. There's intentional parents and parents who aren't intentional yet. Like those are different. By just saying good or bad, we're just oversimplifying it, and most people want to do the right thing, but they haven't been taught to do the right thing. So tons of credit to you for listening to the podcast. So you're learning those right things, and maybe you pick up a little bit here and a little bit from somewhere else. That's the whole point. Maybe you ask a question during Q&A, but the reason why I share that is because in most situations, the family person would panic. And the person said, I just bought those braces. What's going on? Like start making it about something else. That's not the immediate issue. The child's bleeding, but it is a reasonable reaction, a natural reaction to make it about something else. Like, I can't believe you fell over. Were you being watched? Like you start to naturally ask all these questions because you don't know how to handle the situation. And it makes it a lot worse. It doesn't make you a bad parent by any means. It just makes you someone who needs to practice these skills more, as Mel shared that she's working on, and I am certainly working on in a lot of these areas, that shake that nuance of, oh, good or bad. It's, hey, like this is an opportunity to learn something that can affect a lot of people, and if you got it wrong, you don't feel bad about it at all. Give yourself some grace. It is natural to get this wrong unless you've been taught it.
Yeah, for sure. And this actually made me think of the podcast that we did previously about apologizing. Sometimes if I overreact, and I'm not really proud of my response, and maybe things didn't go as smoothly, I will take the opportunity to later on apologize to the kid. Like, listen, I reacted too strongly. That wasn't fair to you. I'm sorry for that, and how can I help you? And then really take that on and say, okay, I'm going to work on this. Because I think it's important for kids to see that we as parents are learning new skills. I mean, you're not born knowing how to parent. You need to learn, and you have to be intentional with it. So I think our goal here is to provide you some tactics, and maybe you'll realize, hey, that might be a skill I need to work on. And the next time a situation arises, because one will, you might feel like you have some more tools in your belt to practice and to use.
Another way to practice and to use this and learn this skill isn't to wait till your child gets hurt or throws up on the floor. It's go out together or by yourself and do some challenging things. Because things will go poorly and you'll have to solve them. Whether it's learning a new general skill from, I don't know, skateboard. I don't know why I thought skateboarding, but learning any sort of skill, playing a musical instrument, whatever. I use hiking a lot, challenge hikes, ultra marathons, whatever. You have to put yourself in some bad situations, let yourself figure it out and work through it and know that it's going to be okay, so that these smaller items become almost natural for you to be okay during and being able to solve.
Yeah, the more wins you have with how you've problem solved in difficult situations, the easier it will be as you practice it. But I think one thing I wanted to make sure that we brought up in this podcast was when you panic, isn't there actually in your brain, it shuts down the ability to think logically and think clearly and rationally? And I think you can kind of imagine that. If someone immediately panics, you're not able to problem solve. You're not able to slow things down and think and say, okay, let's get some towels, let's do this, let's call the orthodontist or whatever it might be. If you simply panic, those ideas can't come. Someone might have to come along and help you with it. And you really need to be able to rely on yourself to be able to problem solve, as a parent especially.
This is so normal to handle it in a not good way that they call it fight or flight when you're in a situation like this and things get so challenging that you're tempted to either run away or fight it. And that does come out in these situations where the examples earlier where parents will start to quote unquote fight with the kid verbally, like, what'd you do? Like, what happened? Like, did you not know we just got the braces? Like, their instinct is to get very defensive. That's a natural psychological reaction. And that's why it's got to be trained. Or flight, like, oh, let's try to get someone to solve this. Like, you are the person that needs to solve it because you are the parent or even if you're a child helping out a parent, like the kids helped me out when I broke my leg, like you're the one that has the opportunity to solve it. So you have to embrace that, and it has to be a learned skill.
And we really work on this with our kids in terms of problem solving. We try to get them to think in terms of problem solving, not just complain and this is probably a whole other topic for a podcast, but get stuck in the complaining or the fighting or the questions, and we want to get to the problem solving. So a very, very simple example would be Everett ran out of water in his cup. I don't have any water. Okay, are we going to complain about it, or what can you do about it? And I simply ask him, what are you going to do about it? Well, I can't open the lid. Okay, what can you do about that? Oh, I can ask somebody. So we get them thinking in the problem-solving mode, which I think almost bypasses that panic, because they just think, instead of getting upset, they immediately think, oh, I have the control to do something to solve this.
A good way to verbalize this concept comes from my buddy Vince, which is don't do for a child what he or she can do for himself. You don't carry their bag, you don't get their water, you don't wait on them hand and foot. That is a detriment to that child. You're not helping them learn the skills. And not only, well, what does it have to do? What's the skill? Filling a water cup? No, the skill is solving your problem. It's a bigger picture. You have to think deeper than the immediate. And if you use those little situations like filling up your own water cup, get a blanket when you're cold, decide if you want to put your own jacket on or not, I don't care. Like, you will deal with those consequences of your choice. In those low stake environments, they will perform much better for themselves and those around them in higher stakes environments.
And actually, this water cup thing happened just a couple of days ago, and Everett said it, and then someone else at the table was just about to get up and just do it for him. And I was like, wait. Don't get up. Don't get it for him. He needs to either ask or figure out how to solve this problem. So like you said, don't do it for them if they can do it for themselves, or at least ask for help for whatever they need help with. But that's really been practicing the skill. I was definitely the person, the mom, when I had my first, I was definitely the one who would just do everything for them because I'll do it cleaner, I'll do it quicker, I'll just do it. But as our oldest is 13 now, we realize we want them to be able to be more self-sufficient. Like we talked on a previous podcast about Logan cooking in the kitchen and me just allowing him to do that regardless of how messy it'll be or whatever. We've done it earlier with Everett, our 5-year-old, to get him to think about how to solve problems on his own.
I was watching Henry's soccer game last year, and the core mindset here is you learn from situations, you don't judge people, you judge behaviors, and you learn from them. So that's why I always redact names in my stories, but I want to use stories to help teach lessons. So at soccer games, I'm the weird dad. I wear a normal backpack, so I don't want anyone attention to me, but I put weight in it. So when I'm standing there, like I'm exercising too, I pace back and forth. Like I want to make the most situation, and I also like work my way around the backside of the field so I'm not by the other parents. I don't want to be distracted. I want to just focus on the game and do my thing. And it's a very common thing now with parents that they bring these like chairs to sit on. They have shock absorbers, and they like park their car and they get out a wagon and they fill it with snacks and they roll it like the 4 feet to the field, and then they lay out their blanket and they sit on, eat snacks and watch games or whatever it is. And again, I'm not judging the people. Just keep in mind these are the rewards and celebrations from that episode that will get repeated. So this one family loads up their wagon with stuff, chairs, and so there's a lot of stuff. They had a wagon, fine, that's a fine solution, and they have it on the far side of the field. Turns out their child's game is on the next field. So the sister, I'll say she's about 12, gets the wagon, loads it up, and she starts pulling it around the field. And after about 10 feet, she's doing perfectly fine. She's doing a great job moving it over. The dad comes over and like waves away. No, I got it. Like I'll do this work. Like, okay, well, would you just teach that girl in that situation that she's not capable or strong enough to be able to move this wagon? She doesn't have the usefulness enough to the family to contribute to it, and you're just going to swoop in and take this opportunity for her to grow away by just making her life easier. And that would go for a boy or girl. It doesn't really matter. It's just the swooping in where we as parents view it as us kind of being the hero of the story. Look what I do. I got it covered. I can but on a deeper level, you just rob their opportunity to learn. And that's tough to swallow as a parent. It's tough to see your child struggle. And it's tough to see them do hard things. But you have to view that as a benefit and an opportunity for them versus an opportunity for you to swoop in and make their lives easier, because they're not going to learn the lessons that'll serve them in their life.
Yeah, and for that girl, I mean, the next time that this situation arises, she might not want to help. She might not feel like she's good enough to help or confident enough or strong enough. So again, we're talking about looking ahead to how our current choices are impacting the kids down the road.
And next time, maybe she says, "Oh, Dad, can you get the wagon?" Because that's what he's taught her. But now this time he's stressed from a busy day at work and he's on a phone call about business. Snaps, "Why don't you get it?" Like you're confusing them. That's not like, I see that stuff happen where you tell one thing, you do one thing. Here's what I'm all about in like a calm situation, and then it gets a little bit more stress, like we're talking about now. Heart rates get a little higher, and then you react differently. You're giving such an incoherent message to the child. They're not sure what to believe.
So it's really about being intentional, recognizing that what you're doing has consequences, and I think sometimes when we talk about it, it almost sounds like we're asking you to not just do what you're, the first thing that comes to mind. We're asking you to stop and consider a potential better option. And sometimes that can sound overwhelming, but as we've experienced over time, the more you practice it and you see it as a skill you are practicing, just like anything, it becomes almost more exciting because you're doing it with a purpose and not just as a reaction.
Let's give them some tactics here to finish up. I've got a couple.
Okay.
You've shared a couple, but we want to hit the summary here. I haven't mentioned this in this episode or ever before, so dial into this one. This might be the one that you want to write down. Take some reflection time to think back to when the old doo-doo hit the fan in your childhood home. What was the reactions? And write those down. And then think of, how would I want those reactions to be now? And what can I learn from those reactions? Not judging parents, like they did the best they could with what the skill set they had and the education they had. That aside, how were reactions in your household? Do you want to repeat the way they were done, or do you want to do them differently? Make these decisions when you are calm, so when the situation arises, you have these to go back to. The worst time to try to figure something out is in the moment. And so take a few minutes of reflection. Where did you learn the way that you react now? And maybe it was workplace or whatever else. Reflect. Where did I learn how I react in stressful situations, and journal on that for a few minutes. Then the next question is, how do I want to react in a perfect world in stressful situations? And define these things. If you leave it vague, like, "Oh, I don't want to panic." Okay, well, yeah, that's part of the concept, but you didn't take time to internalize it and look back at how you were taught the way you react now, and what in a perfect world do you want it to look like. And so that is the tactic I want to add on. And Mel, I know you had some notes, so we're in the summary section. What do you want to refresh for them?
Well, I want to first tag on to what you said about self-reflection is, I think, a skill in and of itself, the ability to step back and reflect and plan. And I think this could be really powerful to do it individually, but also like we take our daily walks as best as we can, and that's when we talk. And being able to build that communication with your spouse, with the other parent, and kind of laugh about it and talk about it and learn the skill together, I think can be really powerful. As far as tactics, so I love what you said about self-reflection. And I think just taking on the mindset of staying calm. So if you think about that ahead of time, and you know that that's a skill you can work on, when something happens, take a minute and remind yourself, let me just calm down. So I'm not sure if I'm explaining the tactic well, but
The
it's
tactic is take some deep breaths, take a second.
yeah.
Seconds feel like minutes in a situation, so it's okay it'll be a better outcome if you just take a second and temper your reaction.
Yeah, your kid's arm isn't going to break more if you take 10 seconds to take a deep breath.
Got really extreme there, Mel. All right, go
All
ahead.
right, I
What's
don't
your
know
next
why
one?
Knock on wood that doesn't happen. Well, I wrote down, you are your own rescuer. And I want to just...
You know what, Mel? Let's put a pin in that one.
Okay,
Make
that's
them
probably
wait
a bigger
to it.
thing.
Let's do a 10-minute Tuesday, because the last 10-minute Tuesday I did was 30 minutes. So let's just talk about you are your own rescuer, where it comes from and what it means independently. But this is an important concept we're going to bring up again.
So you mentioned yours. I mentioned how we need to take a breath and calm down. And then I think being able to step in your child's shoes and how would they want you to react is really important. This reminds me of when I used to be a counselor. Oftentimes with parents, we would say to them, okay, your daughter's 13 and she's acting this way. When you were 13, how do you wish your parents would have talked to you or reacted or whatever? So it's the same kind of concept. Something just happened. Okay, let's pretend I'm the kid that this has happened to. How would I want my parent to react? And then do that. Because it's very easy to just repeat what you were taught or repeat what you experienced, which is the whole point of the self-reflection part, right? To be able to get over that. So try to respond in the way that you would want to be responded to if you were the one hurt or whatever.
The last piece I want to add to it, and you're welcome to throw in some last words too, is the realization that this is a skill. It's not something that we were born with, and the assumption that there are good parents and bad parents, that we just have this God-given ability to know what to do in these situations is incorrect. It is a skill that needs to be learned. We don't have this given to us. We might have some personality traits that make us better at handling certain situations, but you can improve all of these things. So if you're not happy with how reactions are in your household, it's going to take the practice with the tactics we're giving you, but it can improve over time because it is a skill. Give yourself the grace to improve it and start to apply the tactics and move your family forward. And that's the most powerful thing you can do, in my opinion.
My last thought that I think is worth repeating is your reaction is both inward and outward. I think sometimes people lump it all together. So if you can work on the skill of an outward calmness, even though inside you might be panicking, start with the outward one and then work on the inward one. But I think separating those out might make this skill a little bit more attainable.
Well said, Mel. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. Visit us at strongfamilyproject.com because that's where you can get the whole 7 elements of the path to set you up for success. And now start working on the skills we're talking about. You'll see Mel and my notes on the sheet you can download. So the resources are there for you. You just have to make the decision that, hey, this is a realization that it is a skill, and then the decision that it's an important enough skill for you to focus on. And I think it is probably the most important skill, which is family leadership that you can have. So thanks for listening to another episode of the podcast. If you have any questions, please submit them so we can engage in some Q&A coming up. And if you found value in it, share the episode. Talk to you on the next one.